Hello, everyone. Welcome to Therapy Clips with Dr. O. Today, our topic will be on triggers. I am from the organization Human Service Consultants. Triggers are people, places, objects, feelings, and times that can cause a craving. For example, if every Friday night someone cashes a paycheck, goes out with friends, and use stimulants, the triggers might be Friday night, friends who use, after work, a bar or club, and money. Your brain associates the triggers with substance use. As a result of constant triggering and using, one trigger can cause you to move towards substance use. The trigger thought craving use cycle feels overwhelming. Once again, the cycle is called the trigger thought craving use cycle. This cycle can make someone feel overwhelmed. Stopping the craving process is an important part of treatment. The best way to do this is to do the following. Number 1, identify and know your triggers. Prevent exposure to triggers whenever possible. For example, do not handle large amounts of cash. Number 3, cope with triggers differently than in the past. For example, schedule exercise and a 12-step meeting for Friday night. Remember, triggers affect your brain and cause craving, even though you have decided to stop substance use. Your intentions to stop must translate into behaviors and the different types of changes that affect sobriety. So, keep away from triggers. But once again, you must know and identify your triggers in order to keep away from them. So, a question that I have for you is, what are some of the strongest triggers for you? What particular triggers might be a problem for you in the near future? So let's talk about the trigger thought craving use cycle. We will start with the topic, the losing argument. If you decide to stop drinking or using your drug of choice, but at some point end up moving towards using substances, your brain has given you permission by using a process called relapse justification. Thoughts about using start an argument inside your head. Your rational self versus your substance dependent self is in an argument. You feel as though you are in a fight, and you must come up with many reasons to stay abstinent. Your mind is looking for an excuse to use again. You are looking for a relapse justification. The argument inside of you is part of a series of events leading to substance use. Remember, in the previous presentation, I said relapse begins in the mind. So ask yourself this question. How often in the past has your substance dependence won this argument? The next topic that we will talk about is thoughts that become cravings. Cravings does not always occur in a straightforward, easy recognized form. Often the thought of using passed through your head with little or no effect. But it is important to identify these thoughts and try to eliminate them. It takes effort to identify and stop a thought. However, allowing yourself to continue thinking about substance use is choosing to ask for a relapse. The further the thoughts are allowed to go, the more likely you are going to relapse. So we're going to move on to the next topic, the automatic process. During addiction, triggers, thoughts, cravings, and use seem to run together. However, the sequence goes something like this. First, you run across a trigger in your environment or in your thinking. If it's in your environment, it will lead to a thought. Then the thought will lead to a craving. And then the craving will lead to use. So once again, it's the trigger, then the thought, and then the craving, and then use. So how do you deal with something like this? You engage in what we call the thought stopping process. The only way to ensure that a thought won't lead to a relapse is to stop the thought before it leads to craving. Stopping the thought when it first begins prevents it from building into an overwhelming craving. It is important to do it as soon as you realize you are thinking about using. So now, remember, the old way of thinking was trigger, then it leads to the thought, then it leads to the craving, and then it leads to use. Now I want to teach you a new sequence. The new sequence is, in recovery, it is necessary to interrupt the thought, the craving, and the use sequence. I'm sorry, let me apologize. It's important to stop the trigger, thought, craving, use sequence. Thought stopping provides a tool for disrupting the process. So this is how it will go. First, you encounter a trigger. It leads to the thought. So then at that particular time, you should engage in the thought stopping techniques. And I'll go over those techniques soon. If you do, you won't use. However, if you allow this thought to continue It will lead to the craving, and then it will lead to use. So now, let's focus on the thought-stopping techniques. One technique is called visualization. Imagine a scene in which you deny the power of thoughts of use. For example, picture a switch or lever in your mind. Imagine yourself actually moving it from on to off to stop the using thought. Have another picture ready to think about in place of that thought that could lead to a craving and then to use. The next technique is called snapping. Wear a rubber band loosely on your wrist. Each time you become aware of thoughts of using, snap the rubber band and say no to the thoughts as you make yourself think about another subject. Have a subject ready that is meaningful and interesting to you. The third technique is relaxation. Feelings of hollowness, heaviness, cramping in the stomach are signs of craving. These often can be relieved by deep breathing, filling your lungs with air and then breathing out slowly. Do this 3 times. You should be able to feel the tightness leaving your body. Repeat this whenever the feeling returns. The next technique is called contact someone. Talking to another person provides you with an outlet for your feelings and allow you to hear your thinking process. Have phone numbers of supported, available people with you always, so you can use them when you need to use them. So make a list of at least 3 people, just in case someone else may not be available when you first call. If that person isn't available, move to the second person on the list. If that person isn't available, move to the third person on the list. Well, thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate having this conversation about how to manage your triggers, how to begin to think about what those triggers are so that you will not fall victim to a slip or to a full-blown relapse. Until we meet again, I want you to love yourself and to know that you're well worth moving forward in your recovery process. Know that you're worth it. And know that I want it for you. Your family want it for you. Friends want it for you. But most of all, God wants it for you. In staying blessed, I want you to have a terrific day. And don't forget to love always. Be blessed.